And our test. Cool. Alrighty, so welcome to the end of season video here. I'm going to get the matchups done. We will take a look at those in a separate video. I'm going to do a shorter video going through the playoffs. That'll be my playoff preview video. This here is just going to be the end of season stats, etc. See if we can get into them here. Why is it bringing me there? I want the regular season stuff. Uh-oh. Did I lose everything? That would be gross. Can I do it this way? Uh-oh. Why is it doing that? You used to just be able to go in and check all this stuff. I could do it before. I will go find them myself if I have to, but you should be able to open this up and find season stats. I can't even get into team stats right now, I don't think. Aha, here we go. Got it. All right. Cool. Sorry about that. That's weird. Usually you can click the stats and bring up all stats, but let's go pick a playoff team. I can do it that way. Okay, cool. Anyway, here we are. Sorry about that. Should have checked that before I jumped in. Anyway. So, before I jump into the player stuff, we're going to take a look at the teams, how they rounded up at the end of the year. We've got our X's and Z's here notifying the playoff teams. We'll take a look at those in the playoff video. This right now, we're going to go just take a look at the Eastern and Western Conference playoff pictures briefly before I break down the lineups. So we see them there in the East: the Boston Bruins, Washington Capitals, Pittsburgh Penguins, New York Islanders, Buffalo Sabres, Detroit Red Wings, Montreal Canadiens, and Ottawa Senators are our 8 playoff teams. The New Jersey Devils missing by 2 points. That was kind of as close as the rest of the East came. In the West, the Edmonton Oilers are the President's Trophy winners with 113 points. The St. Louis Blues, LA Kings, Las Vegas Golden Thrashers of Atlanta, Colorado Avalanche, Dallas Stars, Anaheim Ducks, and Winnipeg Jets are your 8 playoff teams in the West. So, we'll take it to the entire league and just break it down here. The best team at the top, the President's Trophy winning Edmonton Oilers, 6 points more than the Boston Bruins in second place. As you can see, the rest of our top teams here. We'll break it down. Goals for the Edmonton Oilers at the top here with 3.61 goals for per game, ahead of the Boston Bruins. The Vancouver Canucks, the top non-playoff team with goals, but we can see here their goals against is what really cost them. No surprise that the rest of the playoff teams are the best goal scorers. The Chicago Blackhawks are in that mix as well, that we see their goals against costing them. Our worst playoff team with goals for comes all the way down here. The Buffalo Sabres, only at 2.88 goals per game. But Dominic Hasek in the net, certainly helping them out. Detroit Red Wings as well, kind of out of that playoff pack, under 3 goals per game, with Terry Sawchuk in their net, helping out. They got a stacked defense as well. Take a look at those goals against. Boston Bruins, the best goals against. Second in goals for, first in goals against. We see the Edmonton Oilers not even on this page. We'll see them later on, it looks like. A couple non-playoff teams here in the hunt. The New Jersey Devils, who just missed. The Nashville Predators couldn't score. They had a great goaltender in Pecorine. That gave them a early hope. They were up near the top of the league after the first month or so, mostly on the back of Pecorine. But couldn't keep that going, couldn't find a way to score. Only 2.5 goals for there. I didn't see the bottom of it right near it. Yeah, the Arizona Coyotes the worst, but the Nashville Predators not far back from them. Philadelphia Flyers in that mix as well as teams. They actually did have a positive goal differential here. They're up +4, it looks like. Yep, +4. But couldn't quite find a way into the playoffs. And there's the Edmonton Oilers. I think they're going to be one of the worst. Yeah, not quite. Not quite the worst. That will be the Ottawa Senators. Look at that. Their goal differential. Not favorable. Looks like it'll be probably the worst of any of the playoff teams. They don't have that as its own stat, so you're going to have to do it manually here. But just looking at it, that's a -14 for the Senators, the third worst team keeping pucks out of their net. But they found a way to make the show, so that'll work for them. Golden Thrashers of Atlanta as well. Down here among the bottom, a negative goal differential for them. But they get into the playoffs. The LA Kings kind of had to score their way out of trouble. They did. So the Avalanche just about breaking even there. Works out for them. And the Oilers, the best scoring team in the league, not as great as keeping the puck out of their net. We'll see how that translates to the playoffs for them, if they can continue to score their way out of trouble. But with the forward group that they have, I've got them as one of my favorites for the Stanley Cup, mostly because they're in the West. And just looking at the West here briefly, as we'll sort it by points here again. I don't see another team, really, that stacks up as well as they do. Even the St. Louis Blues, who were second, not as good on forward. They got a pretty decent defense and Curtis Joseph in the net. But out of the West for sure, and I think for the whole thing, I'm going to pick the Edmonton Oilers right now. It's hard to beat that Gretzky, McDavid, Messier 1, 2, 3, and then that we saw in one of our last monthly check-ins. We'll see what it worked out for the end of the season, but that fourth line of Doug Weight, Alash Hemsky, and Ryan Smith were just stacking up points as well. So they've got 4 lines that can just absolutely kill you, and clearly with their goals for here, they have been. So that's my pick, especially out of the West, but I think for the whole thing. The East gets a little more cloudy for me, but I'll break that down in my playoff preview video, which is going to be a little shorter than this one. This is kind of more for the stat savvy people. So we'll continue on here. Power play percentages coming into the playoffs. The Washington Capitals have the best in the league at 26.4. We see that Edmonton team right there in third. So the Ovechkin-Bondra power play for Washington, getting that job done. Best non-playoff power play goes to the Vancouver Canucks, 23.5. Toronto Maple Leafs up there too. They couldn't score at 5-on-5, but the power play was getting it done. They had trouble with goaltending and probably general defense as well. Kept them out of the playoffs. The Ottawa Senators a pretty okay power play. Certainly helped them find their way into the show. Looks like the worst power play of the playoff teams is going to belong to the Winnipeg Jets at 16.5. Surprising lack of production from the Detroit power play. Wouldn't be surprised to see that turn around, because they got some firepower up front that hasn't quite found its way yet, but they still have themselves in the playoffs, so that'll be dangerous for them. The Arizona Coyotes, the worst power play in the league at 12.4. Penalty kill tends to be a lot more important in the playoffs. We'll see who stacks up here. The New Jersey Devils are the best penalty kill in the league. Unfortunately, just missed the playoffs by 2 points. So the best playoff penalty kill will go to the Buffalo Sabres, which you have to think might have a lot to do with their goaltender, Dominik Hasek, but they've got some good defensive forwards on that team as well. Michael Pekka immediately comes to mind as one of the best penalty killers on their team. We see the playoff teams stack up at the top here. The Minnesota Wild, the Philadelphia Flyers, some non-playoff teams that had some pretty good penalty kills. Detroit Red Wings, again, near the middle of the pack in the league, near the bottom of the pack as far as playoff teams goes, in another category here. Still only 81% though. That's respectable. Arizona Coyotes near the bottom of the league in pretty much everything, with decent penalty kill for them, over 80%. Toronto Maple Leafs as well, right at 80. My rule of thumb, I don't know if this has been shown in any way or not in any other stats conversations, but my idea has always been if your power play and your penalty kill combined for over 100%, I consider that good special teams. So Arizona Coyotes, I typically see about 80%, 20% power play penalty kill. Maybe you want to be up in that 25 range to be an elite power play. But I think if you got 20% power play, 80% penalty kill, that together gives you your 100. That to me is your baseline for what you want to consider at least average to good special teams. So just using my own little metric there, Coyotes able to sneak into that with the penalty kill, but their power play is absolutely dragging them down. The Leafs, good special teams, but not able to make up for it at 5-on-5. The Red Wings almost the opposite. That 81% penalty kill, not quite able to make up for the 17.3 power play, so that's under 100 for them, but their 5-on-5 play gets them into the playoffs. Looks like the worst penalty kill in the playoffs is going to be to the Ottawa Senators, and it's by a fair amount, only 77% for them. So that could be something to watch out for in the playoffs for the Senators. I always like to look at shorthanded goals. Top teams in the league there, the Chicago Blackhawks at 8, and then a couple teams at 7, the Leafs and Oilers. I always enjoy that stat. So that pretty much runs through our team. We'll take a more in-depth look at the playoff teams in the other video, but moving on now to player stats. We'll take a look at the league first, and then we'll break down teams after that. So your Art Ross winner is Wayne Gretzky at 108 points, the only player to crack the 100-point barrier. And this is Wayne Gretzky playing for Edmonton. Gretzky also on the LA team. We'll probably see him later on when we look at that team. As you'll see our top 10 here. Gretzky, Heatley for the Golden Thrashers. Pavel Bure out of Vancouver. Ziggy Palffy, Paul Kariya, Alex Ovechkin, Daniel Alfredson, Pavel Bure again, this time out of Florida, Mario Lemieux, and Wayne Gretzky for LA. Rounds out that top 10. As we'll see Bobby Orr in there on 11th. Just wanted to make sure nobody else was tied at 86. Our Rocket Richard winner. It was going to be a tight race, and it's Paul Kariya who gets it by 1 over the Oilers' Gretzky. So Paul Kariya is the Rocket Richard winner with 64 goals. Just about going for the Cy Young there. 64 goals, 24 assists for Kariya. Certainly a big-time goal scorer. And this one earns himself the Rocket. Wayne Gretzky from the Oilers is second. Pavel Bure from Florida is third. Danny Heatley from the Golden Thrashers. Then Alex Ovechkin, Bobby Hull, Mario Lemieux, Mike Bossy, Rocket Richard, and Pavel Bure from Vancouver round out that top 10, sorry. And the assists, no trophy for this one, but Nicholas Backstrom is your leader there with 72 assists. Another all-time playmaker, Adam Oates, looked like he was feeding Kariya most of those goals over there on the Ducks. He gets second. Kovalchuk, paired up with Danny Heatley, finds himself in third. Then we see Brett Hull, a surprising one here in the assist category. Brett Hull, more of a goal scorer, found himself only with 23 goals but 60 assists for the Dallas Stars. Mark Recchi, Bobby Orr, who was going to be the top point-scoring defenseman. No surprise there. Kent Nielsen, Teemu Selanne, Luke Robitaille, and Jonathan Huberdeau, with Joe Thornton tying for that 10th spot. Joe Thornton from San Jose. He's also on the Boston team, but a bit more of a prominent role for the Sharks. We'll see penalty minutes here. By a runaway, it's Kevin Bieksa, 21 more penalty minutes than anybody else. Kevin Bieksa leads the league there. We'll see The rest, we got Jeff Bookaboom in there twice with the Oilers and the Rangers. Peter Forsberg, maybe a bit of a surprise there up top. We see a lot more of the grinder goon type players. You're fighters and you're the top of the board here, but Peter Forsberg up at 100. Shots. You have to shoot to score. Wayne Gretzky, Paul Kariya, that was your race for the Rocket Richard. They are at the top of the shots as well. Kariya, though, able to get a bit more shooting percentage out of it. That earned him the Rocket in the end. We see pretty much that same crew at the top. A couple defensemen sneaking into the top of the league here. Sandis Ozelich and Bobby Orr. And no surprise to see Alex Ovechkin near the top of that as well. So, but the crew you would expect to be shooting and scoring was the one doing it here. See Rick Nash with a pretty low shooting percentage that kept him out of Rocket contention when the Blue Jackets needed him to really step up and put the team on his back if they were going to have a shot at anything. Only 51 points for Nash. Couldn't quite crack the 30-goal mark either, and I think that shooting percentage going to be a big point of that for him. Just a little bit of luck falling the wrong way for Rick Nash there. I'll take a quick look at shooting percentage, see if there's anybody that stands out. Glenn Cross only stepped in at the end of the season. I had him replace Michael Backlund, I believe. And put up 3 goals on 10 shots. So there you go. As far as the regulars go, you can see a couple here. We'll take a look at the low side as well, see if there's anybody. Cam Fowler, 100 shots, no goals for Cam Fowler. Looks like the only player in the league with no goals. Let's double check that just for fun. Yeah, the only player in the league to play 82 games and not score is Cam Fowler. Only 8 points as well. I believe he's on the third pairing for that team. Game-winning goals can be a fun one. A tie at the top with Wayne Gretzky and Rene Robert. Bit of a surprise for him. You see the goal disparity here. 63 goals for Gretzky, 10 game winners. 26 for Robert, 10 game winners. That's not if that's not clutch, I don't know what is. I'm going to look at power play points first. We'll just get a general feel there. We'll look at this more, I think, in the team category, but Mike Bossy, the leader in power play points. Pavel Bure for Florida, the leader in goals. Most shorthanded goals. 2 players have 3. It's Brian Little of Winnipeg and Darius Kasparaitis from Pittsburgh. A couple players with 4 points. Shorthanded top them. Pavel Bure, Wayne Gretzky, John Taves, Rod Brindamore, and John Carlson. Time on ice will split between defensemen and forwards. We'll just check the all-time first. This is per game. Seth Jones leads that. And the top forward in this category will be Wayne Gretzky for the Edmonton Oilers. If I remember correctly, he's playing in all situations for the Oilers, playing on the penalty kill and the power play as well. So not much of a surprise there for him. If you get the best player ever, let's put him on the ice as much as possible, I suppose. Face-offs you can see there. It's a bit of a tough one to pull. Let's do it by centers and check the percentage and see what that will kind of give us. There's going to be some outliers here. We'll be able to see the face-offs taken. Yeah, so like Del Vecchio plays the wing on his team, but Joe Nieuwendyk is the top pure center, taking a bunch of draws, and not much surprise for Nieuwendyk. He's one of the best face-off men ever at the top of the list there. Hits, it's Jonathan Taves with 22 more hits than his next competitor there. That's a bit of a surprising win for Jonathan Taves in that one. Block shots. Kyle Brodziak of the Minnesota Wild. Oh, I'm only on centers. Aha, cool. Check those again. Knew something felt weird. One more time. Hits. It's still Jonathan Taves. 187. To Claude Lemieux's 172. I'm going to open that up just for a second, see what's up with Jonathan Toews. Checking. 85, aggressiveness 85. Well, nothing really weird there. Just Jonathan Toews is the league leader in hits. Cool. Block shots, we'll try that one again. Makes more sense. Here's all the defensemen. Ryan Murray with 133 block shots is the league leader there. Giveaways. Never really want to be a winner here. Mike Rathje has the most giveaways. A bunch of defensemen topping that list as well. We'll take a look at the lowest one. Glenn Cross didn't play much. Mostly fourth liners down here. Tyler Seguin was a top line player, though. Only 24 giveaways for him. That's a notable one there. Takeaways. This might be your Selke conversation. Wayne Gretzky has the most of those with 150. We'll see what I don't know if the awards are out yet. We'll take a look at them, see if they are after. They might only come out after the playoffs are done. But if they are there, we'll see them. Fights. We didn't see a whole lot of them in our simulated games, but they did happen. I think we only saw maybe 1 or 2 fights. And one of them was in the game that I played, so not a whole lot of fights happened in the games we watched, but decent amount of fights throughout the season. Kevin Bieksa was the leader in penalty minutes. Not a surprise to see him at the top of the fights list. Jeff Bookaboom's in there twice again. I think Bob Probert, we see him twice too? Nope, just the ones at the top here. Yeah, he's on Detroit, but I don't have him on the roster. Right. Bob Probert only on one team. And that pretty much does it for the skaters. We'll take a look at some goalie stats here as well. Let's see. Save percentage first and see what I have to adjust. Okay, let's make it 30 games. So we can see a couple backups that were more in a tandem. Wins leader, not very surprising here. Laurent Fuhrer played 75 of 82 games for the Oilers. 49 wins for the President's Trophy winners. See a couple of the other top teams at the top here. Marc-Andre Fleury is in there for the Golden Thrashers. Curtis Joseph of the Blues. There's sort of our list here. Fuhrer, Joseph, Fleury, Holtby, Billy Smith, Patrick Roy, Martin Brodeur, Jean-Sébastien Giguère, Dominic Hasek, and Connor Hellebuck. Top 10 in wins. Losses will go least, but this is going to be anybody who's with more than, 41 is kind of notable here. So Turco splitting the net with Ed Belfour. They're both near the bottom here. See what the highest one is. Jonathan Quick, 55 games played, only 18 losses. We'll probably see Fuhrer somewhere in here. Curtis Joseph and Grant Fuhrer, there they are, 22 losses apiece at 75 games played. Sort of kind of hard to judge the wins and losses with the goaltenders, but most shutouts in the season goes to Jacques Plante of Montreal and Dominic Hasek of Buffalo with 7 shutouts apiece. Top save percentage, we saw it briefly when I pulled it up earlier. Dominic Hasek leads that category at 923 for Hasek. Only 2 goalies cracking that 920 range of the goalies that have played more than 30 games. Dominic Hasek and Gary Cheevers, who came in and took over the starting position from Tuukka Rask in Boston. That got Boston, who were in that sort of 3-way, 4-way hunt at the top of the Atlantic. As soon as they switched over to Cheevers, kind of shot up into the standings and took over and won the East. So we'll see Gary Cheevers get the net for the Bruins in the playoffs as well. And that 920 earns that place for him. Marty Turco, Curtis Joseph, Sergei Bobrovsky, Martin Brodeur, Bernie Perron, Walter Turk Broda for Toronto, Pekka Rinne, and Devin Dubnyk round out the top 10 there. Of save percentage, the worst, just for fun, is Roberto Luongo. He's in the bottom 5 here twice. The worst one, the 886 for Vancouver, and then again down here for Florida. And Luongo's an 88 overall in this as well, so just not able to make it work in the net. The Luongo, no matter which team he was in. Patrick Lalime, one of the worst goaltenders in the league, was a starter for the Senators, and they made the playoffs despite his 891. Goals against, not a huge fan of this stat, but we'll take a look at it. Take a look at it briefly here. I'll let you take a look at it if you want it. There it is. It's a bit of a combination of team play and goaltending, which all the goalie stats really are, but I prefer save percentage over goals against. But there it is. The worst one in that category is going to be Luongo and the Liam as well, so the same sort of crew you see in the save percentage category. So most saves, going to be those guys who played most of the season. Marc-Andre Fleury leads that. We'll take a look at all the goalies with over 2,000 saves just for fun. Starting at the bottom here. Bernie Parent, Henrik Lundqvist, Grant Fuhr, Devin Dubnyk, Pekka Rinne, Evgeny Nabokov, Billy Smith, Curtis Joseph, Marty Brodeur, Sergei Bobrovsky, Dominik Hasek, and Marc-Andre Fleury are our 2,000-plus club for saves this season. See if any goalie scored a goal. Grant Fuhr did. The only goalie goal of the season. I think I made this joke the last time, so I'll make it again. Why not? The Edmonton Oilers offense, so good, even the goalie scoring. Most points goes to Detroit's Terry Sawchuk. And that pretty much takes care of our league stats there. Before I jump into the team specific stats, we'll look at the awards. Nope, they don't exist, so we'll have to go through those after the playoffs. So that's it there. We're going to start back at the top of the list with the Anaheim Ducks and see how each team broke down. Paul Kariya, the Rocket Richard winner, is the top point scorer for the Ducks as well. He was on that line with Teemu Selanne and Adam Oates. They have 3 of the top 4 spots. Ryan Getzlaf gets in there in second, though. That line with Perry and Ryan. The top 2 lines in there. Scott Niedermayer, their top defensive scorer. See if there's any surprises down the list. Not too much for the Ducks. We'll look at goals too. Corey Perry in there with 33. Second best goal scorer behind the Rocket Richard winner. The Adam Oates on the top line, only 6 goals. He was definitely the playmaker for Kariya and Selanne. Selanne didn't crack 20 goals either, I don't think. No, only 16 for him. So 4 20-goal scores for the Ducks. 2 30 goals, and Kariya with the 64. Plus minus, I like to look at it, especially when I'm using lines. The Ducks did find their way into the playoffs. This is a playoff team. A lot of pluses for them. But this line here looks like that's going to be their third line. Yeah, third line of McDonald, Kunitz, and Silfverberg. Kind of got caved in. Where's their... Yeah, it was Leclerc, Raquel, and Ruchin. It's probably their fourth line. In net, J.S. Shagir had most of the starts for them. 36 wins, a .905 save percentage for him. He stepped up in the playoffs a couple times in his career. Of course, that Conn Smythe winning performance in 2003, where they didn't win the cup, and then he was in net for their cup victory in 07 as well. So J.S. Shagir could be a big point for the Ducks if they want to go far in the playoffs. The Arizona Coyotes, one of the worst teams in the league. They're led by Jeremy Roenick and Keith Tkachuk, both with 63 points on the season. Take a quick look through their guys here. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, their top scoring defenseman at 38 points. We'll take a look at their goals. Shane Doan, Radim Vrbata with 27 goals each are at the top for them. Only 3 20-goal scorers here. Tkachuk, Vrbata, and Doan. Ladislav Nagy couldn't quite get there with only 19. A team that couldn't score a whole lot was the Coyotes, and they struggled in pretty much every facet. So this is the end of the season for the Coyotes. We'll see what the next season will bring with them. I think I'm going to keep them the way they are, but we'll see for season 2. just before Season 2, I'm going to go through every team and see if there's anybody I want to take out, anybody I want to add, maybe more players I want to create, because this first time through I was a little lazy with it. I made a lot of players, and before the second season, we'll go through each of those created players, and I'll show you some more stuff about them, their individual stats as well, and attributes and that. But there's a couple slots on each roster where there was maybe a player that was on the alumni teams in the game already, and maybe a creative player would have been better for them, but I just decided to put the alumni player in there just for a little less work. But the second time around, I won't have to remake everybody again, so I might add a couple more players, and we'll see if some of these rosters get changed. I know I want to make some changes on the Leafs. Some players that I didn't have on them, and I got some other ideas for some other teams too. So we'll see if this is the end of the road for a couple of these guys in this Legends League. Take a look at the goaltenders for Arizona. Sean Burke with 57 games played was their starter. A decent little tandem here with Mike Smith. Smith and Burke both struggling in the net. 901 for Burke and 896 for Smith. So they didn't get any help in net either. Disappointing season for the Arizona Coyotes. On to the Boston Bruins, the top team in the East. Bobby Orr is their top point scorer with 85 points. He's the top scoring defenseman in the league. Phil Esposito, their top forward, as far as scoring is concerned. Looks like he's going to be their top goal scorer as well. We'll take a look at them here. Ray Bourque, maybe a little surprising he's this low. Especially in goals, too. He's usually gets a lot of goals for a defenseman, but didn't seem to in this season. So yes, it is Phil Esposito, their top goal scorer with 39 goals on the season. Milt Schmidt, the other 30 goal scorer for them. Bobby Orr with 27. Wayne Cashman, 21. Brad Marchand and Rick Middleton with 20 apiece. Those are their 20 goal scorers. This could be the team to beat in the East. If I had to make a guess on that, on the East, I'd say either Boston or Detroit, I think, but we'll get into that in the next video. In net here, it was Tuukka Rask who started off as the starter for this team, but about halfway through, I noticed him not doing as well. On 898 for him to end the season, and Cheevers was up there in numbers, so we made the switch for them. Cheevers took over the net. He will take the net in the playoffs. He's at a .920 save percentage to work with there. We talked about him earlier. 30 wins and 5 losses, 7 with the overtime losses for Cheevers. So those Bruins really turned around. They're already having a good season, but it went from good to great once Cheevers took over the net. Another playoff team, the Buffalo Sabres. Coming up next, Pat LaFontaine is their top point scorer with 63. We see the French Connection line coming up next behind him. Jack Eichel was centering a third line, some good points total for him with that amount of ice time. Top goal scorer is also Pat LaFontaine with 27. We saw Robert, he was up at the top of the league in game-winning goals. He's your second in total goals for them. LaFontaine, Robert, Perreault, Martin, Vanek, the 20 goal scorers. For Buffalo, no 30 goal scorers to speak of. Looks like Phil Housley, yes he is, the top point scorer as a defenseman for this team. And we'll look at assists briefly here. See Jason Pominville and Phil Housley leading that for Buffalo. And Dominik Hasek was the top goaltender as far as save percentage. He could be a top candidate for the Vezina after this performance, getting his team into the playoffs as well with a .923 save percentage for Dominik Hasek. It was a bit of a slow start for Hasek. He had some decent numbers, but they couldn't pull out wins, and as his save percentage went up, so did the win column for the Sabres. A big part in why they are not only in the playoffs, but I believe they finished second in the Atlantic. So, a big showing from Dominik Hasek. The Sabres needed that to have a chance in that stacked Atlantic, and they got it, and they found themselves into the postseason. I'd make an argument, maybe, for Hasek as certainly the most valuable player on this team. And with top Vezina odds, I might give him a thought for the Hart as well. Moving on to the Calgary Flames, they didn't quite make the playoffs. They were in it right up until the end, but that loss to the Winnipeg Jets, which we saw happen in one of the streamed games earlier on, that loss to the Winnipeg Jets kind of did them in. They fell out of that contention, for the final wildcard spot with the Jets and the Blackhawks. Lost a couple games after that and couldn't quite find their way in. Kent Nielsen is their top point scorer with 75. They got another 70-point scorer behind him, Johnny Gaudreau. Top goal scorer for them is Jerome Iginla. Couldn't keep it up with assists, though. 33 goals for Iginla. Their only 30-goal scorer. Only two 20-goal scorers as well for this team. Johnny Gaudreau with 27, and it kind of falls off from there. Al McInnes with 19, as close as they would get. So a little bit of trouble scoring, especially getting it past that top line, which was Nielsen, Gaudreau, and Iginla. Theo Fleury's on that second line. I believe that's with Nieuwendyk. I'm not sure who's on the other side. Maybe Joe Mullen. Too many lineups in my head for them there, but a little bit of trouble scoring past the top line for Calgary could have been a big help for them. See the big -19 on Doug Gilmour as well. I believe that's on the third line, if I remember correctly. We'll take a look at their goaltenders. Mika Kiprasov was the starter here. 69 games played for him, only a .901, but Mike Vernon couldn't claim the net either with an 898 performance out of him as the backup. So a little bit better goaltending for Calgary would have been nice. And that little combination keeps them out of the playoffs. Carolina Hurricanes not a playoff team either. They were sniffing around the wildcard hunt in the last month or so, but couldn't keep up with the Senators and that crew there. So Ray Whitney is their top point scorer with 75. Looks like he'll be at the top of the goal scoring as well. Jeff O'Neill's tied with him with 33, but we'll see it there in a second. Their defenders all right here at the bottom. Nobody able to really separate themselves from the pack. They are Justin Falks, their top scoring defenseman. And so we'll look at goals. There it is, 33 each for Whitney and O'Neill. Roberts and Skinner round out the 20-goal scorers for them with 22 goals apiece. Top of the assists for them is Ron Francis. In net, Archers Urbe and Cam Ward. Urbe had the net for a good chunk of the season, and then I switched it over to Ward with Urbe in the 800s in save percentage. Switched it over to Ward, and he did a little better. He's got a couple extra wins. A winning record with him in the net. Still only a .903 for him, so not sure how much that necessarily helped. They did make a little run after Ward came in to try to get into the playoffs, but didn't work out there. That might earn Ward the start for the next season, though, because I think this will probably be the goalie tandem for them next season as well. Then I got them both at 83, I believe. Yeah, Worm's at 82. I might bump him up. We'll see. And he might get the start next season, but that's the Carolina Hurricanes. And the Chicago Blackhawks, who just missed the playoffs on the last day of the season, losing out to the Winnipeg Jets. Bobby Hull's their top point scorer with 68. A couple players within the 60-point range for them, Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane. Looks like the goal scoring pretty much done by Hull and Eric Daze. 46 for Hull, 31 for Daze, and then no other even 20-point scorers. Speak of there, Patrick Kane, a disappointing season in goals with only 19. Tony Amonte, maybe another guy who could have scored a bit more. We'll look at the points a bit more briefly here. I didn't go through. For them, Jeremy Roenick's fairly low, but I think he was on that third line, so. See, Chelios and Keith, a bit lower than probably like them to be. It's Doug Wilson who's their top defensive scorer. In net for them, it was a bit of a switch halfway through the season for them too. Glenn Hall had the start for them, but only an 894 from him. Made the switch to Tony Esposito, only a 902 from him. So a little bit of disappointing goaltending from two star goaltenders back here. I believe they're both Hall's 93, Esposito just about cracking the 90 mark too. So didn't quite get the goaltending they thought they would have, and that ends up costing them a playoff spot in the end. Colorado Avalanche were a bit of a was a team with a bit of a crazy story this season. They started off looking like they could be one of the favorites in the West, didn't get off to a hot start, and then picked it up near the end, and do find themselves in the playoffs. Alex Tangay's their top point scorer with 71, just ahead of Peter Forsberg with 70. A big part of that slow start was Forsberg and Sakic not quite finding their way. Forsberg did sneak up there, as you can see, he's up there to the second, but Joe Sakic way down here on the list with only 55 points on the season. If they can find their way in the playoffs, they could definitely be a team to look out for. Top goal scorer for this team, 27, is Peter Forsberg. Decent amount of 20-point scores for them, though. Forsberg, Tangay, Peter Stastny, Valery Kamensky, and Milan Hajduk with 23, and then Sakic and Deadmarsh with 19 right there, too. So some scoring throughout their roster, but not quite as much as they probably expected. Doesn't matter, though. They're in the playoffs. The slate is wiped clean. And if those big-time superstars, Forsberg and Sakic and Stastny, Nathan McKinnon as well, a bit low for him. We might go take a look at the lines for them, see if we can get McKinnon. I think he's on the third line, because I believe Stastny's playing on Sakic's wing or vice versa. So, see what happens there. In net, Patrick Waugh. A bit of a story in this one, only a 902 for him. We've been kind of saying that all season. The second he finds his game, it's going to be trouble. He's one of the goalies I have rated 99. One of the top goalies ever. I'm kind of giving that to him and Hasek, I believe, is my top two goaltenders at 99 overall. And Hasek lived up to it with the 920. Well, not so much. But again, same thing I said about Sakic and Forsberg. If he can find it in the playoffs, this is going to be a tough team to beat. A team that got in despite their best pieces not working. If they can find that connection. Columbus Blue Jackets didn't make the playoffs. They were hoping for a big season out of Rick Nash. Didn't quite get it. Nikolai Zherdev ends up being their top point scorer with 54. Nash there in second with 51. And, they needed their what little star power they had to work for them. A lot of those guys you would call as more complimentary players did their work. Zherdev, Favorny, and they're the 50-point category. Some 40-point scorers here. Ryan Murray, their top defensive scorer, but a team with doesn't have the big star power as anybody else, and needed their stars to do extra. And Rick Nash couldn't quite get that done this season. 28 goals for him on the season, though, does lead the team along with Zherdev. But couldn't get to that 30 mark. Only 3 20-goal scorers for them. David Waborny with 26. And it kind of falls off from there. Broussard with 18. They're closest to that. Sergei Bobrovsky, we saw him earlier. We went through the goalies. One of the top goalies in the league. Bobrovsky did his job in net. A 916 for him. Couldn't get a winning record out of him there, though, if you add the overtime losses. Played 69 games all season. needed to be the big starter for them, and he was. But couldn't quite get the goal support around him to try to get this underdog team into the playoff conversation. The Dallas Stars are a playoff team. Brett Hull led the way for them in points. Usually a goal scorer, but did it in the assist column here. 60 assists, 23 goals for 83 points for Brett Hull. Playing alongside Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn. That's the top line for them. They are the top three here. As I went for more of a North Stars line with Madonna, Bellows, and Cicerelli. That's their second line. Is this team will probably be another one of the top teams in the West in that playoff picture. Hull doesn't lead the way in goals. Dino Cicerelli does. And Hull's line mates, Ben and Sagan, also up there. Hull's still in there too. Along the top is still a 20-goal scorer, even with the assists. And Joe Nieuwendyk joins that 20-goal conversation with 23. Two 30-goal scorers for this club, Ben and Cicerelli. So maybe not the way you would expect this Dallas Stars team to work out with their top players, but they all showed up, they all worked, and they've got themselves a slot in the playoffs. In net was a bit of a strange story for them. A perfect tandem just about here, splitting the net. Ed Belfour and Marty Turco. It looks like Turco is going to earn the slot in the playoffs with a 918 over Ed Belfour's 904. So I think Turco took that end stretch as well for the Stars, but we'll keep an eye on them. This was a team that used the tandem, and will be open to keeping that tandem rotating through the playoffs if needed. But I think Turco is going to get game one for the Stars. Moving on to the Detroit Red Wings. We'll start from the net with them. Why not? Terry Sawchuk led the way for them. 71 games played for him. Only a .902 save percentage, though, out of Sawchuk. Another goalie I have rated pretty highly here. He's one of the top goaltenders in the league. Similar to Patrick Waugh, not quite living up to it, but his team finds its way into the playoffs anyway. A team that you expect to be big time on offense doesn't have a point-per-game player. Pavel Datsuk, who's playing the third line for them, leads the way at 68 points. We see the production line kind of split up through this points tally here. So they went for more of a balanced approach in their offense. Not one of the top scoring teams in the league. Kind of did it with a good mix of all-around play for them, which kind of expected out of this Red Wings team. But nobody really quite broke free and claimed themselves as the star of this team. But it worked for them. They're in the playoffs, and maybe somebody can grab that ring in the postseason. Sergei Fedorov leads them in goals. Gordie Howe, Pavel Datsuk, Henrik Zetterberg, and Sid Abel are the 20-goal scorers for them. Nobody able to break that 30 mark. And but still, just a balanced attack from the Red Wings seem to get it done for them this season. The President's Trophy winning Edmonton Oilers. We're going to do it with their depth. We're going to do it with their star power, and that's exactly what they did. Their top scorer is the Art Ross winner, Wayne Gretzky, with 108 points on the season, the only player to crack that 100-point mark. Connor McDavid was the second-line center for this team. He ends up second in points, so that 1-2 punch absolutely working out for the Oilers. And a bit of a surprise as their third top centerman is Doug Waite here as their fourth liner. We expected the Messier line to maybe get it done, but Messier we see down here farther in the group. His line mates, Glenn Anderson, and where's Craig Simpson? He'll be pretty far down here as well. So that fourth line kind of turned more into the fourth line as far as skill goes, but ice time still important there, and that Waite line made a lot of it. There's Waite and Hemsky and Smith as that fourth line. I did a lot of damage for the Oilers, as well as their top guys, Gretzky and Curry and McDavid. See Leon Draisaitl up above 50 as well. Esa Tikkanen, Glenn Anderson. Defenseman Paul Coffey with 72 points. Big number as a defenseman. We'll see their goal scoring here. Gretzky just fell short of the Rock of Richard by 1 goal, 63 for him. Connor McDavid with 34. And then a big bunch of 20-goal scorers as well. Leon Draisaitl, Ales Hemsky, Paul Coffey, Doug Waite and Glenn Anderson, the 20-goal scorers for the Oilers, who relied a lot on their offense, and it worked for them. Take a look at the net for them. We expected maybe more of a tandem from this team with Fuhr and Ranford, but Fuhr took the net and ran with it. 75 games played for Grant Fuhr, a 907 to Ranford's 885. So goaltending needs to step up a little bit maybe in the playoffs, but with the firepower up front, it didn't matter through 82 games. All they got to do is win 16 more to get the Stanley Cup. So there's your President's Trophy winning Oilers. On out of Florida, team that didn't make the playoffs. Pavel Bure led the way for them. Was right around that Rocket Richard race until the end with Gretzky and Korea. Ended up losing step with them at the end, though. But still got to that big 60 goal total. 86 points for him. Jonathan Huberdeau was second behind him with 70 goals. No 20-goal scorers to speak of other than Bure's big 60. So Bure put this team on his back and couldn't quite carry them far enough. They never really got out of the basement in the East. And the depth around Bure, just not quite enough to do anything there. We'll look at the net as well. That was a problem for them. Roberto Luongo started off as a starter of this team. Couldn't quite crack the 900 mark for save percentage. Van Breesbroek took over after that. He does get to 900, a 906 though. 4 shutouts for Van Breesbroek, and still a losing record for him. So we'll see maybe if there's some adjustments to the Panthers going into next season, or if just Roberto Luongo can find his game. That could be a game change for him. I think there might be some adjusting as far as the teams in their divisions and that. I think I might break up that big Atlantic a little bit. Maybe send Detroit over to the West. Let me know what you think about that. But yeah. To the Las Vegas Golden Thrashers of Atlanta, a team that was just thrown together at the last minute here, just to include a couple Thrashers. And honestly, they were more of a team I used to have a created team in there and get a couple technical things done. But they came together on the back of Danny Heatley and Ilya Kovalchuk, that Atlanta contingent for them. 97 points for Danny Heatley. Had him near the top of the league in the Art Ross conversation. 54 goals for him as well. Ilya Kovalchuk right there with him. Their center was William Karlsson, and he acted more as a playmaker for Kovalchuk and Heatley. And that gets this Golden Thrasher team into the playoffs. We'll look at their goals here too. Danny Heatley and Max Pacioretty lead the way. Only 2 more 20-goal scorers to speak of for them. Ilya Kovalchuk and Vyacheslav Kozlov with 23 goals apiece. In net was Marc-Andre Fleury. 75 games played for him, a 908. He was up near the top of the league at one point, I believe in the 920 conversation. He kind of fell off from there, but the Golden Thrashers hung on around him, and they will compete for the Stanley Cup. I believe this will be the one and only season for the Golden Thrasher Club. I think I'm going to try to give the Atlanta Thrashers their own team next season. We'll see how that works out. I might want to have some reason to have Vegas in there too somehow. I don't know, but I'm thinking I want to give Atlanta their own team, so they might come in as the 32nd franchise. So we'll see. Again, let me know if you have any thoughts on that. If there maybe should be some Vegas representation on that team, but I think I'm going to skew it more towards Atlanta next time. Not because they did well. I'm actually kind of glad they did well. It adds a little bit of extra fun to this season. But this is kind of more about a throwback feel, and we got a lot of current players on this team because of the Vegas representation. So I think I want to throw it back a bit more, and we'll get a couple extra players in there from older times with the Atlanta Thrashers alumni. So, but again, let me know. The LA Kings will make the playoffs. Zygmunt Palffy leads the way for them ahead of Wayne Gretzky. A big year for Palffy. I believe playing alongside Robitaille and Gretzky. See their Triple Crown line in behind them. Dion, Simmer, and Taylor. Bernie Nichols able to find his way as a third center into this top points conversation. Check out goals for them. 42 for Palffy leads the way. 34 for Gretzky. And then only two 20-goal scorers after that. Bernie Nichols and Dave Taylor. Marcel Dion couldn't quite get in there, only 19. Goaltenders, this was another team that was going to look like a tandem setup, but Quick took the net at the end. A 900, just barely breaking 900 for him. But Jonathan Quick tends to be a playoff goaltender. Looks like he'll get the net for them going into the playoffs. And if Quick can find that Stanley Cup winning form once again, it's kind of anybody's ball game behind the Oilers in the West. So the Minnesota Wild, they're not able to make the playoffs. They needed Marian Gaborik to do a lot. He does lead the club with 67 points. And the crew kind of behind him, doing the job as well. So about as good as you could expect for the Wild. There's maybe a spot to be had in the West. They stayed right around the conversation the whole time, but couldn't quite break through. But a good season for the Wild, all things considered. As one of the newer teams in the league, not a whole lot of alumni to speak of, not a whole lot of big talent to come through there either. They've always been a team that's kind of relied on team success, and they had some decent depth here, but no one quite able to punch through and pull the team up past where they were about expected to be. Andrew Brunette with 35 goals leads the team. Zach Parise, Pierre-Marc Bouchard, and Marian Gaborik are the 20-goal scorers for them. Take a look at the net. It was Devin Dubnyk who got the start here. 72 games for him, a 9-12. Again, did his part. But the Wild just not quite able to find their way into that playoff conversation. The Montreal Canadiens did, though, and that was off the back of their goaltender, Jacques Plante. Played 66 games, a 9-10 for him. Gary Price was his backup, not quite able to... there was maybe a spot to be had for Price if he could have posted some big numbers as the backup, but not quite for him. Maurice Richard and Guy Lafleur lead the team with 73 points. Again, it's a little similar to Detroit. A lot of big-time firepower up front. Kind of did it more by committee at the top end here. Not quite as much as Detroit, with a couple 70-point players here. Rocket Richard couldn't quite ever get into that conversation for the trophy that bears his name, but leads the team in goals with 43. Lafleur, Locke, Jean Beliveau, and Bernie Boom Boom Geoffrion are the other 20-goal scorers for the Canadiens. We'll look at assists here briefly. That's Guy Lafleur leading the charge there. And we'll see the Montreal Canadiens continue on into the postseason. Nashville Predators, we talked about them earlier on in the season. I brought it up earlier as well. They started off strong, but couldn't quite ever find a way to consistently score. We see here two 60-point scorers, a 50 and a couple 40s, and it kind of drops off from there. Alex Radulov led the way for them with 64 points. David Legwand with 32 goals leads the way there, and only three 20-goal scorers. Two past Legwand, it's Radulov and Hornqvist. Greg Johnson was close with 18. Philip Forsberg close with 18. Like I said, 18 for Johnson, 19 there. But, nobody quite able to find a way to score for this team. Pekka Rinne started off really strong. I think he was even up in the 930 area to start the season. Fell down to a quite respectable 912. Even the backup, Chris Mason, doing quite well. Wasn't ever going to take the net from Rinne unless Rinne fell down into those 800 kind of numbers. But still a good job for Mason coming in and playing when he had to. This team was kind of built from the net out. A strong defensive core for this club, but nobody really took over offensively from the blue line. Roman Jossi's a guy who usually scores a lot, only 19 points for him. Weber, only 4 goals with that big shot back there. So a team that's that's built from that end. Didn't get the scoring back there that they maybe hoped for. And that found them near the bottom of the Western Conference. The New Jersey Devils made a run at the end. They were a team that were kind of struggling early on. They were maybe one that was going to hope to get in, similar to the Predators, but even more so, built from the net out. A great goaltender in Brodeur there, an absolutely stacked defense, and some decent firepower up front to hopefully make up for it. Didn't start off strong, had a run at the end, got into the playoffs at the end of that, and I forget, did they make it? I'm now confused. I'm convincing myself they made it. No, they didn't. Okay, thank you. It'd be real dumb if I was talking about them as a non-playoff team. They ended up making that thing. Sorry about that. Had a sudden flash that I was just wrong. But anyway, the Devils just about made it in there. Came right down to the wire on the last day, but the Senators able to hold them off with a win on the last day of the season against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Yeah, I remember it now. And not quite able to get it done with New Jersey. Zach Parise, though, led the way for them in points. Taylor Hall will not be returning to the Devils next season. He was kind of thrown on as a current player representation for the team. He's no longer with them, and didn't really stack up enough games played to justify staying on the team. So this will be the last season for Taylor Hall. I'll think about maybe putting him on the Oilers, but that Oilers team was so stacked. There's really nobody who can come off it either. So, but we'll take a look. Maybe I'll put him in as like a 13th forward or something on Edmonton, but or maybe I'll do the same thing I did for him with the Devils, put him on Arizona. But he'll probably leave Arizona after the season's done anyway, so this might be the last we see of Taylor Hall at all. 64 points, 27 goals, 37 assists is his mark on this Legends League with the Devils. He and Brian Giunta lead the team in goals at 27 apiece. Top scoring defenseman for this club is Scott Niedermayer. We saw Scott Stevens leading it in goals. Brian Rafalski's there as well. Yeah, Rafalski's got a couple more goals than Stevens. 19 and 16 for Stevens. So the defense kind of did its job from the back end. Not quite enough goal scoring up here in front. They never really had a big offensive superstar come through and stick around for long enough to do much. There's maybe a spot for Ilya Kovalchuk on this team, but again, another one that a complicated history with Kovalchuk and the Devils, so there might be a spot for him, but I'll see who has to come off to make that happen if it's worth it. He might replace Taylor Hall. That could be what happens here, but we'll see. In net, Martin Brodeur started off slow. Never in the 800s, I don't believe, but started off not quite in the Martin Brodeur territory you were expecting, but gets up in the 915 here, and a team that if they could have made the playoffs with their strong defense and Marty Brodeur in net, maybe could have made some noise, but never quite got there. They fall back just a little short, and this is the end of the line for the New Jersey Devils. The New York Islanders are a playoff team. They're led by Mike Bossy and John Tavares with 81 points each. Big 75 points from Pat LaFontaine as well. A couple 60-point players, Brian Trottier and the defenseman Dennis Potvin. A strong offensive showing from this team. 44 goals where Mike Bossy leads it. John Tavares, Pat LaFontaine are the 20-goal scorers. 35 for Tavares, 26 for LaFontaine, and it kind of falls off from there as far as goal scoring goes, but a lot of big points, guys. We'll see it in their assists here. A lot of guys with a decent amount of assists, so maybe a bit more goal scoring. Spread through the lineup would be nice for the Islanders coming into the playoffs, but it's worked for them here. We'll take a look at the net. Billy Smith had it, 74 games played for him. We saw one of Chico Rescher's 12 games played. We'll see Billy Smith get streamed here in the playoffs. He will have the net for them. A 9-10 for him, a 9-21 for his backup Resch too. So some good goaltending from the Islanders. And they'll certainly need that in the high-powered East in the playoffs. Moving on to the Rangers, one of 3 original 6 teams to miss the playoffs. Only half of the original 6 get in. The other half, the Rangers, Leafs, and Blackhawks don't. The Rangers were the worst of the original 6. Mark Messier leads the way for them with 63 points. Brian Leach, 40 points as a defenseman, leads them in that category. Maybe expecting a bit more out of him. Probably expecting a bit more out of Gartner. He was a really good goal scorer. Only 17, though, for him in this season. So a team that if they were going to do anything was going to kind of do it based on depth, and nobody really grabbed the reins for them here. Messier, 63 points, but couldn't get 20 goals. The only player to get 20 goals for the Rangers is Steve Vickers with 24. Messier and Tkachuk with 19 each. So, bit of a struggle for the Rangers. The two goaltenders, Henrik Lundqvist, kind of claimed the net here because Richter never could really get going. Didn't crack that 900 mark. Lundqvist didn't get much higher than that either, a 907 for him. Maybe they should have done more of a tandem kind of setup, but maybe that could have helped take away some pressure from either goaltender, but that's it for the New York Rangers. A pretty disappointing season from them. The Ottawa Senators find their way into the playoffs as the last team in the East. Daniel Alfredsson leads the way for them with 87 points. Another 80-point showing for Danny Heatley over here as well. And Alexei Yashin with 79. A couple of more 60-point players. Erik Karlsson leads the way for their defense, and Jason Spezza with 60. And their offense needed to make up for what ended up being one of the worst goaltenders in the league in Patrick Lalime. But they find their way into the playoffs anyway. On the back of some big-time offense, 3 30-goal scorers, Heatley, Yashin, and Alfredsson. Havlat and Fisher are the 20-goal scorers for them, 28 for Havlat and 21 for Fisher. Hossa there with 18. We see a lot of guys with some good assist stats as well. Alfredsson led the way there. Erik Karlsson with 52 from the back end. Really separated himself from the other defenseman. Have to go all the way back to 13 points for Ray Redden to find the second highest scoring defenseman for the Senators. Chara's on this team, didn't get much points, but a lot of defensive defensemen for them, and they have themselves in the playoffs. And if you're in the playoffs, you have a chance. We'll see what kind of chance they have. Patrick Lalime, we talked about him. 56 games played and 891 for him. Craig Anderson, the backup with a 908. We'll think about maybe giving him the start in the playoffs. If you have an opinion on that, let me know. 85 overall for Lalime, 83 for Anderson, so it won't be too much of a drop as far as that goes. And certainly better numbers than Lalime going into the playoffs. So I might give that a shot. I want to give every team the best chance they possibly have to do well. And I think Anderson over Lalime might be the way to go. Philadelphia Flyers are up next. They missed the playoffs. Mark Recchi led for them with 77 points. Eric Lindros expected a big season out of him. Couldn't get it done. Only 69 points. Still a respectable number, but for somebody with the talent and the big 95 overall number there for Lindros, they expected some more out of him. 42 goals, though, but couldn't quite keep up in assists. Maybe that's more to do with his teammates than him himself, but that's a big part in the Philadelphia Flyers not quite making their way. It's the crew you would expect near the top of their points leaders. You got Lindros and Giroux and Bobby Clark, Mark Recchi, John LeClaire, but none of them, apart from Recchi, would really get up into those high point numbers. Lindros leads the way with 42. Only two more 20-goal scorers behind him, though. John LeClaire with 21, Claude Giroux with 19, Simon Gagne with 19, just about able to get in there. In net, Bernie Perron took the net. A 9-14 for him, a good showing in net. For Perron, Ron Hextall was the backup. Decent numbers for him as well with a 9-10. So the problem wasn't in net for Philly. We'll see if they'll have better luck next season. Pittsburgh Penguins were right up near the top of the East, battling with the Washington Capitals and Boston Bruins for that top spot. Couldn't quite get there, came up a little short, but we'll see them in the playoffs, and they could be a favorite here. Mario Lemieux leads the way with 86 points. Evgeny Malkin, Jaromir Jagr, cracking 70 as well. A bit of a surprising season for Sidney Crosby. He's on that second line with Malkin, and not able to get up into those high point numbers we expect from Crosby. If he can find his game in the playoffs and stack up with Yager and Malkin and Lemieux, this could be a team to beat. Lemieux leads it in goal scoring with 46. Malkin, Crosby, Francis are the rest of the 20 goal scorers there. Yager, if he can find some goal scoring touch, would be nice. Mullen as well. So there's still some room to grow here for the Pittsburgh Penguins, who finished up near the top of the East, even without everybody firing on all cylinders. So this could be a dangerous team. In net, Tom Barrasso took most of the games played here with 64, posting a 902. But Marc-Andre Fleury with a 924 in only 24 games played has a case to make that maybe he should get the playoff start. This could be a similar situation to the Senators, where I might make that switch going into the playoffs. I think they're 87 for Fleury, 88 for Barrasso. So yeah, certainly could be warranted. I think the reason I mostly kept Fleury out of the starter was not to have Fleury starting for two teams, but with the play he's had here for the Penguins, it might earn him the net. San Jose Sharks finished near the bottom of the league this season. Evgeny Nabokov was their starter for 74 games, a 902 for him. Vesa Toskala, a 918. Maybe he could have gotten the net at some point, but their problems were a lot deeper than just goaltending. Only one player cracking the 60-point mark for them, Joe Thornton with 66. Owen Nolan, a disappointing season, only 43 points for him. Patrick Marleau with 47. Brett Burns, even as a defenseman, is the leader here in their of their defensemen, but he's usually up there a lot higher in points. Couldn't get it done this season, and this was a team that needed what little star power they have to jump up, and they kind of really didn't do that. Joe Pavelski leads their way, though, for goals. Jonathan Chichu had a good goal-scoring season with 26, and Vincent Damphus with 21 are their 20 goal scorers. Ryan Clough just about broke that barrier there with 19, but the Sharks were down near the bottom of the league all season, and that's the end for them this season. St. Louis Blues finishing second in the West, led by Pavel Demitra with 80 points. Brett Hull in behind him with 76. Couple 60-point scorers here, too, with Per Turgeon, Vlad Tarasenko, Keith Tkachuk, and Bernie Fedorko, all with 60-plus points. This could be a team to beat in the West. I think the West, I said it already, is wide open, but there's a team maybe that can challenge the Edmonton Oilers. It could be the St. Louis Blues. They've got, I'd argue they've got as good, if not better, on defense, too, with behind that top pair of Pronger and McInnes. They got Pietrangelo back there, too. So, and then Curtis Joseph has been known to steal series in the past with the Toronto Maple Leafs and with the Edmonton Oilers even. So, keep an eye on the St. Louis Blues. Top goal scorer for them, Tarasenko with 34. Demitra just behind him, and Brett Hull, again, not leading the way in scoring for his team, but still doing a good job back here, similar to what he did in Dallas. So that's something to keep in mind for the next season's sim. I might make some adjustments to Hall to make him a bit more of a goal scorer. He's listed here as a sniper, and his shooting stats are through the roof, but I don't know, maybe I'll have to move some stuff around to try to get him to look like more of a goal scorer. He's got some really good passing skills there, too, so maybe I'll move some stuff around. I want to keep his overall up there, but it might be something that gets changed around a little bit going into next season, just to try to get Hall as a bit more of the true sniper he really was. In net was Curtis Joseph, played 75 games. He needed to be strong for this team, and he was. A 917 save percentage for Cujo. Only 3 shutouts, too, so that shows he was pretty consistent every game, not relying on shutouts to pad his save percentage. So I say that like I think shutouts are a bad thing. Certainly don't get me wrong there, but when you see a goaltender with a lot of shutouts and a save percentage that's not among the league, that kind of tells you it's an inconsistent goaltender. When you see somebody like Cujo here with a couple shutouts and a high save percentage near the top of the league, tells you got yourself a consistent goaltender. Tampa Bay Lightning, another team in the basement. You can kind of see why here. Only 2 players cracking the 60-point barrier. Only 3 players cracking 50 points. Stamkos, Kucherov, and St. Louis. Stamkos leads it with 64. It doesn't look like we're going to see any 30-goal scorers here for them either. Nope, Nikita Kucherov leads it with 25. Stamkos and LeCavalier, the only other 20-goal scorers here. St. Louis lacking in that category. Brad Richards as well. Andrew Chuck could have maybe jumped up there a bit higher. Nobody really claiming the team for themselves on Tampa. They've got some decent star power at the front here with all these guys, but nobody really able to break free from the pack and get the scoring done for Tampa. So they stuck right around near the bottom of the league. Goaltending wasn't exactly helpful for them either. Happy Bullen and Bishop kind of split the net, just able to crack that 900 mark, which is seeming to be fine in this league. Not many goaltenders crack 9-10, but not many stayed under 8 either. So it's a league where the average I think the average probably hangs around. I haven't done math on it, but probably hangs around like your 908s kind of area, 908, 907 maybe for this season. So kind of sliding in under that. Happy Bullen and Bishop, neither one of them claiming the net for themselves either. We'll go on to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Up next, a disappointing season for them. No 60-point scorers to speak of there. Ted Kennedy led the team with 59. Matt Sundin, usually more of a goal scorer, only scored 15 this season for 55 points. So disappointing season for a lot of guys here for the Leafs. Austin Matthews, the guy who's up near the 40-goal conversation, usually. Only 23 for him this season. Thomas Carberlet was a surprise in goal scoring, 26 goals for him. Usually more of a passer. Got himself a lot of shots this season, so I got to make adjustments on his stats to get him out of that. It's kind of weird with him because he had a very accurate shot. He won the accuracy competition, but I probably have to lower those just because it's kind of ruining the sim a little bit. So I'll bring those down for him, and I probably overshot them too because I got some Leaf bias in me. Tell me he's got an accurate shot, I'm going to make it the most accurate, I guess. But we'll bring those stats down for Carberlet and try to get him more into the playmaker that he was, rather than a 26-goal scorer, 264 shot guy. So just a bit of a sim fail for me there on Carberlet, but certainly didn't make the Leafs any worse having a 26-goal scoring defenseman, and they still couldn't make the playoffs. So you can't accuse me of too much extra help for Toronto this season. Top goal scorer Phil Kessel and Thomas Carberlet with 26 goals apiece. 20 goal scorers Austin Matthews, Darryl Sittler, and Dave Keon in that 20-goal category. Nobody breaking 30 though, and so the Leafs hoping to score by committee did so, but didn't score a whole lot. So that's going to be some adjustments to the Leafs. I will be making a couple roster changes to the Leafs. I think I'm going to find a way to bring Sil Apps onto this team. And on defense, I think we'll be seeing Tim Horton's usual partner, Alan Stanley, make a way onto this club. And we'll see what else gets done there. In net, these are the two guys that had to be good, and neither one really got there, especially not Johnny Bauer. He didn't even crack 900. He's a 92 overall goaltender. Didn't have a good showing. Gave the net to Broda. He put up some decent save percentage, but couldn't get the wins. He's an 89 overall goaltender here, and those are the two that are gonna keep the net for next season. Those are the two bona fide starters for the Leafs, and they'll need to pick it up next season. The Vancouver Canucks were right around that wild card spot, but couldn't find their way into the playoffs. Pavel Bure leads the way for them with 90 points, 43 goals. The Sedins just behind them with 78 and 74 points. And Mogilny with 68 to the end of their 60-point scores here. Maybe we're hoping for a better season out of Marcus Naslund. Trevor Linden maybe even. Could have been helpful getting them a bit higher up. Goals, Pavel Bure and Alex Mogilny, the top two. 43 for Bure, 34 for Mogilny. 28 and 27 each for the Sedins. Todd Bertuzzi is their other 20-goal scorer with 21. Ryan Kessler just about snuck in there with only 19. In net, this was where the big disappointment was for them. Roberto Luongo posting a disappointing .886 through 53 games. Kirk McLean ended up taking over the net about halfway through the season or so, a little bit more than that. Only a .902 from him, too, and a big losing record there. So Luongo, even with that low save percentage, came out of this with a winning record. And then McLean goes in, better save percentage stats, but can't win a game. So just a confusing year in net for the Canucks. Final two teams here, the Washington Capitals find their way into the playoffs near the top of the East, fighting with the Pittsburgh Penguins for the top of the Metro. Alex Ovechkin and Nicholas Backstrom lead the way for them, 87 and 85 points each. Ridley and Bondra up there too. Alex Ovechkin, as expected, leads in goals for the Capitals. Peter Bondra there with them, that top line of Bondra, Ovechkin, and Backstrom. Two big-time goal scorers doing some big-time goal scoring, and one of the best playmakers up there with 72 assists. So that top line worked exactly as designed, and they got some help as well from the Mike Ridley line behind there, Adam Oates, too. So, and some big help on defense as well. 59 points for John Carlson. Sergei Gonchar putting up 49. So this team did exactly what it needed to do, and it found itself up near the top of the East. In net, Braden Holtby. I expected maybe more of a tandem between Holtby and Kolzig. Holtby took the net and ran with it. A .907 for him. A .910 for Kolzig, so a little bit better, but never really enough to justify putting him in over Holtby manually. I was kind of hoping the auto-rotate would take care of that, but Holtby and Kolzig never really separated enough that I felt the need to go put Kolzig in, and with the win numbers of Holtby, he'll keep the net for the playoffs too. And our final team to look at, the Winnipeg Jets, who found their way into the playoffs on the last day, holding on to their wild card spot. They're led by Teemu Selanne with 79 points and Dale Howardchuk with 74. A couple other 60-point scorers to talk of here: Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, Keith Tkachuk, and Patrick Laine, all in the 60s there. Top goal scorer Patrick Laine with 35. Teemu Selanne with 30. And a couple 26ers here, Blake Wheeler and Dale Howardchuk. And the final 20-goal scorer for the Jets, Mark Scheifele with 21. Nobody really cracking the top marks here for defense. Randy Carlyle is their top offensive defenseman with 28 points. Dustin Byfuglien just behind him with 24. And in net, Connor Hellebuck carried the net for them. 73 games played, a .910 to Bob Essens' .908. So Hellebuck will keep the start for the playoffs, and that's it for everybody here. So thank you for watching through. The next video coming up will be more of a playoff preview video. It'll be a lot shorter than what's going on here. We'll just go through, break down each of the matchups, and I think I'll do a little bit of research to get a couple numbers that aren't easily found on here before I get that done. So it won't be coming up right away. I got to take some time to compile some stuff, but we'll get that up, take a look at the matchups as they go for the playoffs, and then we'll start the playoffs, if not tomorrow, next week, but we'll see. Playoffs coming up soon, and thank you for watching so far, not just this video, but the rest of the season, and yeah, there you go. That's the end of this first Legends League regular season. I do have another one planned coming up after the playoffs here for this one. We're going to keep it going. I enjoy having this as a thing to keep us up, especially now with hockey stop, but I think I'll keep it going alongside the NHL playoffs. We'll just slow it down a little bit as that happens once that gets back up and going, but it's not like I'm putting out the same kind of thing. We're seeing a lot of the older guys here, and something to keep an eye on in between normal games when those are going on too. So we'll keep it going. We got season 2 getting up after the playoffs of season 1, and these were the stats and standings for the season 1 regular season. So thank you and goodbye.